Slavery. The word evokes images of brutal plantations, transatlantic voyages, and inhumane treatment. It conjures up a dark chapter in human history, one we often believe to be confined to the past. However, the grim reality is that slavery is not an artifact of history. It is a modern-day scourge thriving in the shadows of our globalized world. This essay will explore the unsettling reality of modern slavery, focusing on its manifestation within the United States prison system. Slavery in the 21st century takes on many forms. It includes forced labor, debt bondage, human trafficking, and forced marriage. Millions of men, women, and children are trapped in these exploitative situations. They are denied their basic human rights and subjected to horrific conditions. The International Labour Organization estimates that over 40 million people are victims of modern slavery today. This issue is not confined to developing nations. Modern slavery exists even in countries like the United States, where it often operates under the guise of legal loopholes and systemic injustices. This essay will delve into the exploitation of prison labor in the US, a system often referred to as legal slavery. We will examine how the 13th Amendment, intended to abolish slavery, contains a loophole that perpetuates this inhumane practice. Modern slavery is not a regional problem. It is a global crisis that transcends borders and cultures. From the cocoa farms of West Africa to the construction sites of the Middle East, millions of individuals are trapped in forced labor. These victims are often lured by false promises of a better life, only to find themselves trapped in exploitative situations with no way out. Women and children are particularly vulnerable to human trafficking, often forced into prostitution or domestic servitude. The psychological and physical trauma they endure is unimaginable. Debt bondage, another insidious form of modern slavery, traps generations in a cycle of servitude. Individuals are forced to work off debts they have no hope of repaying, often under dangerous and exploitative conditions. The global nature of supply chains further complicates the issue. Products we consume daily, from the clothes we wear to the food we eat, may have been produced using forced labor at some point in their supply chain. This interconnectedness necessitates a global response, one that addresses the root causes of modern slavery and holds perpetrators accountable. The 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution, ratified in 1865, proudly declared that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the parties shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. While intended to abolish slavery, this amendment tragically contained a loophole, an exception that has been exploited for over a century. This exception, allowing for forced labor as a punishment for crime, has created a system of legal slavery within the US prison system. Inmates, disproportionately people of color, are forced to work for little or no pay, performing tasks that generate billions of dollars in revenue for both state and private industries. This system not only violates the fundamental human rights of incarcerated individuals, but also perpetuates racial and economic inequalities. The loophole has its roots in the post-Civil War era. Southern states, seeking to maintain their cheap labor force, enacted laws targeting black Americans, criminalizing minor offenses and imprisoning them in large numbers. This system, known as convict leasing, allowed private companies to profit from the forced labor of prisoners, often under brutal conditions that mirrored the horrors of pre-abolition slavery. Today, prison labor in the US is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Inmates produce goods and provide services for both state-run enterprises and private corporations. They manufacture furniture, assemble electronics, package food, and even fight wildfires, often for wages that amount to pennies per hour. This cheap labor force allows companies to maximize profits while undercutting wages for workers outside prison walls. The conditions under which many inmates work are often harsh and unsafe. They receive minimal training, lack adequate safety equipment, and face the constant threat of punishment for slow work or refusal to work. These conditions, coupled with the lack of fair compensation, raise serious ethical concerns and draw stark parallels to historical forms of forced labor. The exploitation of prison labor is not only morally reprehensible, but also economically unsustainable. It creates an unfair advantage for businesses that profit from this system while disadvantaging law-abiding citizens who struggle to compete with the artificially low wages paid to inmates. Moreover, it perpetuates a cycle of poverty and recidivism, making it difficult for former inmates to reintegrate into society and find gainful employment.